I wanted to play Sludge. So I painted 2 armies consisting of over 100 miniatures in under 4 weeks. With these techniques in this video, I'll show you how I did it. I'm Shane and you're watching Hobby Homies. In this video, using the popular SlapChop technique, I'll show you how I painted my Sludge army. The miniatures are from Medbury Miniatures. They are from the medieval range and they come in white metal or STLs that you can 3D print at home. Now let's get straight into it. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is build the miniatures. With these metal miniatures, there's not a whole lot to do. Drilling the hands of the pikemen and gluing on the cross members of the crossbows. But that's really about all. There's a little bit of flashing to clean up. But that's it. So let's head over to the workbench and get started. All right, first step we have is the building phase. So for that, you're going to need yourself a small pin vise and some super glue. Today I'm working with metal miniatures and super glue is what you need. I have 2 types here. I have the gel and a thin liquid. Brand is your choice. So firstly, with these models, there's not a lot of flashing on them. The building phase of these metal miniatures is really nice, unless you've cut your teeth on metal miniatures in the past. These are fairly new to me. So a little bit of flashing, a little bit of mold lines, but almost nothing. So basically just clean off any mold lines that you can see. Some of these will be hidden, so it doesn't matter too much. And I've attached them to the base, as you can tell. So this guy will be holding a spear. So we have drilled his hand slightly. It was kind of catered for, but you just need to sort of blow that out just a little bit, just so that wire spear will fit in there nicely. I've cut this down. It was 10 centimeters long. It's now down to about 6. I just thought it was a bit more manageable. And he'll be basically carrying it over his shoulder just like that. So we will start with some of the gel super glue. You don't need a lot. With this stuff, you actually use very, very little. And we just want a little bit in his palm. And we sit the spear in there. I like to use a super glue accelerator. I do not have any with me right now, as I realize. But it doesn't take too long. So we'll just hold that there for a moment. They do say that breathing on it helps because of the moisture in your breath. I'm not going to do that right now because that might make me look kind of silly. But yeah, so that's it. That's holding there. What I will do is I will grab the liquid super glue and just run a tiny little bit on his shoulder to also, so it's got basically two points of connection. Sorry, this might be out of focus, but I need to see. There we go. And then we'll just push that around with something. It is a tiny little dollop on the back there. And then once that cures, you won't even know it's there. So that's him. And we'll attach him to his ride. I'm just gonna put a little bit of super glue on the top there. And the gel. Gel's great because it's a gel. And that will he'll just pop down on there. You can sort of move it around to sort of push it all between his legs, and there he sits. So it doesn't take too long to begin to cure, and we'll come back to that one when he's ready. All right, while our mounted rider dries, let's quickly drill the hands out for this banner bearer for our commander. As far as drilling hands go, this is one that needs to be done because his wire spear will not fit. His hands have been molded, but there is a very nice workable dimple, I guess you could call it, in the top of his hand. So I will drill those both out and then we'll be able to mount his banner. Try and line it up using your pin vise, and then being a soft metal, it does drill through quite easily, but take your time with doing it. You don't want to rush because if it comes out halfway through his hand, it might be a bit silly. All right, so we're through the first hand. Now what we'll do is we'll just clean off all of that garbage in the end of the drill, and it doesn't hurt to actually go through and just very gently angle it slightly, and what that does is it kind of blows the hand out a little bit, just so you can sort of get your wire spear through there, because these are think it's like 1.1 mil drill bit or something like that, and it's tight. It's tight. So we're through our first hand, and now we'll go through the second. All right, we're through. We are through. Cool. Alrighty, next step. Our wire spear. So these come with these Medbury miniature models. I believe you can buy them on their own. So we'll feed that through his hand, and we'll get a bit of an idea. So it's kind of just clipping on the bottom of his chain mail. So we'll run that drill through a little bit, and kind of like earlier, sort of angle it slightly without snapping your drill bit, because these are very small drill bits, and it will sort of take a little bit of a channel out. So you can also sort of push your finger down on it, which will help. It might be hard to see, but there's a very slight channel out of it, and we'll just feed this bugger through. There we go. Now there's a second part to this banner, which is a top little flag. Again, that needs to be drilled. Okay, so we're through the bottom section. Now, we don't need to go all the way through now because there is a spear tip. So what we'll do is we'll just begin to drill the top, just enough for that spear to sort of sit in there nicely. All right, now we've drilled that. These little wire spears have a pointed spear tip already sort of pressed on them. What I'll do with these tin snips, which have been here this entire time, I didn't have to ask Churchy to go and get them for me. We're just gonna cut just a very, very tiny tip off. And it's gone to the ethos now. And we will feed the spear into that. And then that will be our little flag on top of our banner pole. So we'll grab our Gorilla Glue. Not sponsored, just good gel super glue. And we'll put a small dollop right in the center. And we'll stick this bugger in. I might have put slightly too much, but that's all right. We will, oh no. So we've attached our banner. Now let's use our liquid super glue, a thin super glue, and we'll just do a little tiny drop on each of the hands. You can almost put a little drop on the pole and then use something to sort of just push it down, and it will seep into the hole that you drilled. Again, with this, less is more, just a little bit to keep it all together. Alrighty, that's our banner for our commander, and that finishes the building phase of these metal miniatures. Next, we will move on to the basing. Okay, once your super glue is dried, we will need to texture the bases. You can make your own texture by using sand, PVA glue, water, and paint, or you can cheat like I did and use Vallejo Industrial Thick Mud. But any of the Vallejo texture paints are fine, but we'll head back to the bench. All right, so we're back here for step 2, which is the basing phase. So some of you will remember this guy, his name's Steve. We built him earlier in step 1 in the building phase. We are going to base him. So you can use your own basing mix if you are creative enough to do so. Basically sand, PVA glue, paint, and a bit of water. But I'm gonna cheat here and I'm gonna use some of this Vallejo thick acrylic mud. There's different flavors. This one is industrial thick mud. Some of it is like European mud, Russian mud, all kinds of stuff. But I'm just using this because it's what they had when I purchased it. So using a texture applicator or a coffee stirrer or whatever you want to use, your finger if you really feel like it, scoop some out, and then you just cake it on the base. So generally be pretty careful around feet and stuff. This is for sludge, so if everything is sludgy, that's fine, you know, that's fine, depending on how you want to do it. And you can always like clean it off. So if you do get someone there, it takes a little while to cure, so you can just, yeah, wipe it off with your finger or someone else's finger if you feel like it. We are just, like I said, just caking this on. Because these metal miniatures are on like little puddle bases, you kind of need to build it up a little bit higher. If you were building something like a sort of a, you know, a plastic kit or something like that, you may not need to, or you may sort of build your base and then later on glue your miniature to it. But for now, if you're following along like I am, you just slap it on. I like to sort of go all the way around, and then like where there are sections where it's slightly lifted because the puddle is slightly bent or something, just try and just jam a little bit in there, you know. Just stick it in there, swirl it all around, cake it on, almost like you're putting peanut butter on toast. We're done, we're just pushing it around the feet. If you miss a little bit, it doesn't matter. You can, you know, when it dries, sometimes it pulls and it shrinks, so you may need to touch it up a little bit. But I found if you're going pretty thick and heavy, you won't need to. So that's it, that's done. This will take a while to dry, take like a day. Step 3, once your texture paint is dry, I usually give these at least 12 hours. We will take them outside to a nice ventilated area and prime them using a rattle can. Remember to take even passes and not to coat on that primer too thick. All right, so while our texture paint is drying on that other miniature, we will prime. We're going to take these ones earlier. Texture paint is dry. Super glue on this guy, nice and dry. Today we will be using Citadel Color Chaos Black. Feel free to use any miniature primer. Some people use Rust-Oleum paints. I just use this because it's what I know. It's definitely not the cheapest, but it's never let me down. So let's go outside and prime these little buggers. All right, so we're outside, well ventilated area. Take our rattle can and give these guys just a soft, gentle prime. I like to do smooth passes, steady passes. You can always go back and add a little bit more if needed. Slow and steady style. We do this as to not coat too much primer on, because if you do, you will lose details. Especially those finer details, like the loops and the chainmail and such. Using this stick, you can sort of rotate it as much as you need. You'll always find spots that you miss, but once it dries, take a quick look and you can focus on those again if needed. So we'll let that dry. Step 4, get your dry brushes. It is time to slap the chop. I like to start dark using Mechanicus Standard Grey by GW and work my way up to Dawnstone and Ulthuan Grey. This is generally quite heavy to start with, and lighter passes for each color. You can even work your way up to almost a white on the extreme highlights. All right, while our primer is drying on our other guys, we're gonna slap chop some of his mates. So we will grab our dry brushes and get ready. I like to start dark. Today we'll be using Mechanicus Standard Grey as our base, followed by Dawnstone, and lastly Ulthuan Grey. All of these by GW. Straight out of the pot, nothing fancy here. We give them a good shake, and then yeah. So you almost want to overdo it, I think, when it comes to slap chopping, dry brushing. Yeah, let's start with this big brush. Yeah, so we're working in here. We will put a little bit on our brush and take the excess off the paper towel. Different ways you can do this. I just like to give it a bit of a wipe, and then we hit it. We hit it quite hard. Go from the top down. Like I said, when it comes to this style, I've found that it's best to almost overdo it. Do it, you know, do it however you wish, but I like to go quite heavy, leaving the black in almost only the extreme recesses. We will also do the base as well. And these being metal miniatures, just be careful you don't sort of knock the primer off. Make sure you get the spear too. And the face. One thing I found with SlapChop is faces can be difficult. You need to sort of spend a little bit extra attention on them, or you need to sort of really exaggerate their highlight and bring them up, because any contrast, unless it's thinned, will darken them quite significantly. It will come across a lot darker than you expect, but it does all your shadows for you. So that's good. All right, so that's our first coat. Almost hard to tell, but the next coat you will definitely see it improve. Give it a good shake. And again, same thing, straight out of the pot. You can use a palette. I used to use a palette. I don't know why I don't use a palette anymore, but take the excess off, and then we go to town. Now, obviously, as we go brighter, slightly less. So I still like to give it quite a heavy hit, but you don't want to go as excessive as you do with your first step. And sometimes you can't reach places. That's fine, because it's it'll be in shadows anyway, or partially obscured. So if you can't see it, don't stress too much. But you may need to use a smaller dry brush depending on which miniature you're working on. And these guys being 3 to a base can be quite difficult, but they are line inventory too. So you're gonna have quite a few of them. Characters you may spend the extra time on. Okay, that's our second step there. Slightly brighter. Third, also in grey. This color will really, you'll think you've overdone it. And that's actually how you want it. You want to look at it and be like, that's too bright. Because this will really, the contrast paints or your speed paints or whatever you're using will really pop when it comes to this. I probably should be rinsing my brush out, but it's fine. A bit of blending, let's call it. And we'll sort of hit this softer and mostly top down. If need be, you can sort of stipple it a little bit. You can sort of jab it. Don't use your good brushes for this. Just use whatever you've got. These are dry brushes from GW, but makeup brushes and other brands are absolutely fine. This is where a smaller brush would probably be ideal, but I've committed to it, so. You really see the shadows and the shading work as you do this, and especially this last step. You could go again if you wanted to with like a really extreme, almost like a white, very, very extreme, like just on some edges. But I think the way I do it, this is ample. And the colors we'll be using today too are brighter colors than browns and stuff. So it'll look nice. And the base too. Okay, so that is our dry brush stage. Again, like I said, you could go one more extreme highlight, but that's pretty good. Okay, step 5. Time to block in all the colors. I like to paint straight from the pot using contrast paints, but you can thin them on a wet palette. I've heard it does wonders, but for us, we're just gonna go straight out of the pot. Okay, so we have done our dry brush stage. Now we will block in our colors. So using contrast paints, I've heard it's good to thin them, but today we are just gonna go straight from the pot. So we're starting with our yellow, which is Iandan yellow. Pop that sucker open. Grab your favorite brush. lick it, of course, and these guys will begin. So they wear yellow trousers in this army. I don't know why, because I wouldn't be caught dead in yellow trousers. But these guys do. They love it. That's fine. Their enemies on their battlefield call them banana legs. They don't like it. You do want to be careful, because if you need to fix up any areas, it can be quite difficult with the whole dry brush sort of underpainting. So take your time. And some areas will be quite dark, but if you've sort of missed it, but it all sort of works together quite nicely in the end. Bear with me. All right, now that the yellow's done, we will move on to the green, which is the other main color of this scheme. Mostly the tops and the robes and everything else on these guys is green. I'm using Orc Flesh Citadel contrast. Missed a spot, as always. A couple of sleeves. I like to do their sleeves yellow also. But the beauty of this is there's no blending, there's no paint on the palette. You just pick the pot up, crack it open. Don't be worried either if you make any mistakes, because one of our steps that we do will hide everything. Or it'll tie it together. Okay, next we are on to snakebite leather. I like to use this for leather, boots, gloves, sometimes belts and bags and all the sorts. But there's a good range of these colors that you can mix and match. So starting with snakebite, we'll do their boots and gloves. Okay, boots and gloves are done. Now we shall move on to Skeleton Horde. A much lighter brown, tan kind of color that I like to use for belts and straps. These guys don't have a whole lot, mostly one around their waist with a little pack on their hip and a few straps sort of hanging. You can also use it on the scabbard of their swords too. Next we'll use wildwood for the shaft of the spear, is that what you call it? Wildwood is such a good contrast paint. It covers nicely, it's got a great color to it. It just does everything that you need it to do. Okay, spear shafts are done. Next we will do some flesh tone. For these guys I'll be using Guilliman Flesh, again by Citadel. Most of them have gloves on, a few of them have bare hands, so we'll just pick those out. And of course we'll do the faces with these guys, so sort of just shove it in there. Your dry brush will have picked out their nose and their cheeks and those kind of details already, and sort of their, the recesses will still be quite shadowed, so it looks really nicely. Some people put a lot of effort into faces, especially if they use a contrast paint. You may need to underpaint a few steps, but I don't with these guys. just I don't know, just slather it on, really. And lastly, we will do the base. We were doing Rattling Grime, and with this I just go quite heavy. And any of the dry brushed areas on the base will come up almost like a tan color, and the rest of it will be a nice brown. Use a crappy brush for this because you just cake it on, and contrast is not good for the ferrule on your brush. Cool, that's them. So they will now dry. We have metals to do, like the spear tips, their helmets and the chainmail, and also their swords. But we'll come back to that. Step 6, it's time to pick out all the details. Here you'll do things like the metallics, like the armor, the helmets, maybe buttons, and parts of weapons. I'll be using lead belcher from Games Workshop, but you can use any kind of metal or gunmetal color you like. After you've picked out those metals, we'll be drowning these in Agrax. You can make your own brown wash through different ways. Some people like to use oil washes, but here we'll just use the standard acrylic Agrax Earthshade by Games Workshop, and we'll be going in quite heavy, but just be careful not to let it pull too much, and it's going to take some time to dry. All right, so next step is the metallics. Here we will bring on our wet palette, pre-wetted, and I like to use Citadel lead belcher. There are some great metallic paints out there, but I feel like lead belcher is just a solid. Some of the other ones, their name escapes me. Speed metal is a really good one. And gunmetals are quite solid too. We won't need heaps, but we'll put a little bit on our wet palette using this texture applicator. You can use a brush, but I like to use that. And then we'll grab a fine brush. Grab a little bit and start where you want to start. So these guys have metal helmets, chainmail, the pommel and their handguard on their swords, and I don't even know what you call it, but it's the little bit at the end of the crossbow where you put your foot through to draw the string back. That old thing.
I'll Google it.
Churchy, Google it.
It's called a cocking stirrup.
A cocking stirrup. I guess you're cocking the crossbow. I've said it a few times already, but the detail on these miniatures are incredible. So check out Medbury Miniatures. He sells physical models, metal models here in Australia. I'm sure they post overseas, but you can get the STLs from like My Mini Factory, and that's a garbage truck picking up Friday morning's garbage. Okay, cool. That's our metals done. Wait, no, it's not. I've got the cocking stirrups. If there's ever a spot you've missed, the best way to find it is take a photo of this miniature that you're so proud of and send it to your mate, and then zoom in and have a look. You'll see it. It'll be staring at you. Cocking stirrups are painted. Cool. All right. The second last step of today, we will be giving these guys a big bath in Agrax Earthshade. You can create your own washes. Some people do, I don't, but check those out. For things like this, I really think they're probably the way to go, because we are using quite a lot of this stuff. Grab a nice heavy brush. This is a number 3, an SMS number 3. And don't worry about the end. You want to use an old brush for this. So just dunk it straight out of the pot and just slather it on. Like, I'm talking like cover these dudes. When I first painted one of the armies, the army that uses Perry Prussian miniatures, I wasn't happy with it, and it was sort of the first time really playing with contrasts, and I sort of had painted them all up, and I was like, what have I done? And then one of the homies, Ollie, suggested I give it a Agrax wash, and since doing it, amazing. Absolutely amazing. It really ties everything together. It fits the sludge theme, because in sludge everyone's covered in sludge and everything's filthy and there's not much of the world that's left. So who's got time to clean, right? So yeah, but incredibly happy. Like I said it earlier, it darkens everything down. So if you start with sort of brighter than expected colors, you won't find that you're not muting it too much. And it just helps fill all those recesses, shades everything. Be sure to pull it all around. Don't have it sort of too much sitting in any one place, but you have a lot of working time because this will take a while to dry. All right, well, they're all done. We've done 3, so we'll let them dry. And while they're drying, we can do the banner for our banner bearer. Let's go right here. Step number 7. Here we'll be making a banner. I printed one up and designed it in Affinity Photoshop. You can use whatever you like. This is quite small, but you want to make a mixture of water and PVA and soak it, wrap it around the flag pole and give it a good while to dry. All right, so our last step, the banner. Banners are quite new to me, so I've designed a little one in Affinity Photo. This is it here. This is obviously the green and yellow, sort of suits the scheme. And there's a little wolf on there. There's a wolf. So I've printed it off, not at work, not using work supplies outside of work purposes, like who would do such a thing? And we will cut this out. This is just standard paper. A4, it was A4 sized. Okay, so we'll also fold him in half. So we can get a bit of an idea. That's our banner. It's a little bit smaller than I was actually hoping, but it'll do the job. It's a lot smaller than I was hoping. Anyway, okay, so thanks to Vumu, one of the homies in the Discord, showed me a trick on how to do these. So first you want to get a cup with an old banner in the bottom. I lost that one. There you are. Yeah, exactly. We'll put some PVA glue in there. White glue. This is just your standard PVA wood glue. I don't know if there's a difference between like wood glue and like craft glue. Who knows? We'll put a little bit of water in there as well. So we'll mix that up. We'll just use a crappy old brush like this one here, and just do that. Don't forget, a day without laughter is a day wasted. And we'll mix that up to a nice consistency. Is that an earthquake? And we'll drop this in there. Now, actually, you know what? We still need our brush. Don't lose it, because that's how you end up having a flag stuck to the bottom of your cup. And we'll soften it in this PVA water mix. Alrighty. So, oh no. Whew. Okay, we're going in with fingers. All right, cool. So that's out. Thank you, cup. Now we will wrap it around the flagpole. Sorry, this is very difficult to do, whilst also trying to maintain some kind of good angle. And we will pinch it and sort of bend it, try to give it that illusion that it may be flapping in the wind. And as it dries, it'll hold that shape. It doesn't have to be perfect, but if you can avoid having a crease in it, and perhaps just a soft sort of bend shape to it. It's a little bit straighter than I was hoping, but that's all right. That's all right. And what we'll do is we'll grab our brush with our PVA water, and we'll just brush that on. Mostly around the pole of the banner. Okay, cool. So that's going to try and sort of fall straight. So what we will need to do is just sit this somewhere where it can dry. Off camera maybe. But yeah, so that's the banner on the pole there. And then once it dries, that should look quite nice. Okay, last but not least, as our banner dries, we will do probably one of the most satisfying parts of any hobby project is rimming the base. I like to use these kind of paint holders. You can use like a paint pot with poster putty or blue tack on the end, but these allow you to actually get to the entirety of the rim. We'll use black, just some standard black in our palette. This is Vallejo black in a dropper bottle. And we'll grab a brush, any old brush, probably an older brush. Load that up on there and just enjoy that victory lap. Cool. That's him. And we'll do the rest of them and then we will show them off. This project taught me a lot of things. I learned a lot about myself as a hobbyist. I learned how I hobby, and I learned a few techniques that can help get things done. Like, I am no golden demon painter by any means, but I'm really proud of these miniatures, and I feel like I've been able to do them in such a rate that for once I'm painting things quicker than I can buy things, which is awesome. I smashed out 2 armies to get them done on the table, working on terrain, that's coming. And yeah, the intention was to get things ready for a game. And we're nearly there. I've got a 3rd army on the way, as you've just seen, 4th army in process. But yeah, it's been really good. It's been good to learn how I do hobby, and things to help me get things done quicker. I hope you guys have learned something from this video. Maybe something you're already doing, maybe it's something that you might like to try. I think in the future I'll probably start trying to play around with oil washes, but for now, as far as everything's going, pretty happy getting stuff done. So massive thank you to you guys for watching this far. I hope you've enjoyed. Sludge will be something that we will begin to cover on the channel. We are working all through different games. We also do a podcast. We talk about all things of the tabletop gaming hobby. You can find links to that down below. You can find links on hobbyhomies.com. For there you can join our Discord, consider our Patreon, and yeah, check out our website. There's a bit of Instagram stuff on there too. So massive thank you to all our patrons. Without you guys, we wouldn't be here doing what we do, or we would be, but not anywhere near as well. So thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.